Hey, welcome to the channel. It's Jack, the muscle and mobility maker with Stronghold Strength and Conditioning. And today, we're going to be showing you how to fix that plantar fasciitis for good. But before we get into it, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine. And it doesn't get better than that. So take advantage of it. Ready? Let's go ahead and dive into this one. All right, like I said, today we're gonna be showing you how to fix your plantar fasciitis pain for good so that you can put it in the past and leave it there. But before we get into how to actually do it, it's important to understand what the real problem is, because a lot of times when people are trying to address their plantar fasciitis pain, they're only addressing part of the problem and not the real root cause, and that is a problem in itself. So generally, you might have tried stretching out your calves a bunch because they're really tight and they're always chronically tight. Or you might have tried doing some myofascial release techniques to the calves, or wearing something at night to help stretch your foot, keep it in a good position, or doing some ball work on the bottom of the foot. You might have tried various different things there only to have them not truly work or last a long time. And then again, that is because we are not addressing the actual root of what's going on here. We're only looking at part of the problem. So generally with plantar fasciitis, we are looking at that pain at the heel, the bottom of the foot. That fascia is the symptom, okay? But it is a full system that needs looked at here that is driving the overall problem. So when we look at what's going on, where the problem is, where the symptom is showing up, there's a few things we want to look at function-wise. And it's, one, do I have the toe function that I should, the mobility of the foot that I should? Okay, and this has a lot to do with what's going on with the musculature of the calf. If I don't have a good arch, if I don't have the splay of a foot that I should, if I don't have the individual control of the toes that I should, then I am missing out on a key piece of mobility that is putting a lot of extra pressure on that plantar fascia and causing my plantar fasciitis, okay? But anytime we look at the foot itself, it's extremely important to understand that we also need to look at the hip function as well. The foot and the hip have a cyclical relationship with one another, and if one is functioning poorly, so is the other. It's gonna be a feedback system from one to the other. So if my hip mobility is off, if my hip function is off, then this is also going to drive and likely be a true factor in the tension that is chronic in your calves that's causing your plantar fasciitis, because we don't have the hip function and strength at the glutes that we should to stabilize the hip well. And that is, in combination, the true root cause of what's going on with your plantar fasciitis. It's not just your calves. That is a byproduct of the failure upstream or the failure downstream, or the combination of the two that is causing your plantar fasciitis pain. You follow me on all that? Hopefully. Okay, so with that all said, let's go ahead and get into how to go about mobilizing so that you can fully resolve your plantar fasciitis. All right, like I said, the first thing we're going to start with is restoring function to the foot. So first place we want to look is the toes. And I'm going to start here with a passive toe splay by interlacing my fingers with my toes and getting those fingers in as deep as I can. Now, once my fingers are in there, what I'm going to start to do is actually grip my fingers and try to crush them between my toes using the strength of my foot. So I'm going to hold that flex for about 5 to 10 seconds, as much as I can. Your foot might want to try to cramp on you when you do this. Just relax a second, give yourself a breath, and then come back into that flex. Every time you relax the flex of the toes, what we want to do is make sure that we are trying to get deeper in between them once again. Now this might be uncomfortable to begin with, and just know that that is normal if you've never done this before and if your toes don't have the spacing that they should. We need to restore that splay so that your foot has a better balance compared to what it does currently, and that takes pressure off of that fascia and provides more stability to your foot and leg as a whole. So keep doing this. We want to do about 10 to 15 reps where we're flexing for that 5 to 10 seconds and really getting deeper in there, or a total time of about 2 to 5 minutes with our fingers between our feet here, letting that restore the mobility and open up space here. Now, one of the biggest things that can cause our toes to narrow like this is the footwear that you're wearing. So if you wear a sandal that your toe has to hold the sandal in place, where you have that little prong in between the first toe and the big toe and the second toe there, that's a problem. If you have narrow toe boxes, if you have shoes that have a thick sole, if you're wearing foot inserts, these are all problems that are taking you the wrong direction and keeping you captive to your plantar fasciitis. Now, the second one I'm doing here is an active toe splay. So I'm actively trying to spread my toes using neuromuscular control. Again, surprisingly, it might be really challenging to do this in the beginning, and it will take some practice, but what we want to be able to see is that our toes can relax and they'll be closer together, and then we can actively open them up and provide space to them using the muscles of our foot to do so. All right, next we're going to work on the system of the leg here. So I have my hip in external rotation, and you'll notice that I'm cranking my foot so the bottom of the foot is to the ceiling and then down toward the floor. So I'm working active pronation and supination here. I should say passive pronation and supination, using my hand to create that movement. And what you'll notice is the foot goes up, bottom of the foot toward the ceiling, then my external rotation is also going to open up. And this is the fascial line that we're working. We need to have the ability to open up into external rotation at the hip here, and this is going to help open that up. Now from here, I'm going to individualization of the toes. So I want extension of the big toe first, and then I'm going to extend the smaller toes and switch. And we're just going to go between those two, being able to pick up the smallest toes while the big toe stays down, and then picking up the biggest toe while the small toes stay down. These are all things that are training the strength of your foot and restoring the arch of your foot, and overall making you more stable from the ground up once again. So that is our main goal, is restoring stability to the foot and structure of the foot back toward its more natural state overall. From here, we have one more intrinsic foot strength exercise. It's called short foot. So what you're gonna do is reach those toes out as far as you can and drag those toes back, shortening the foot, creating an arch. I'm trying to imagine rolling up my mat or pulling my mat back toward me with my toes each time I do it. You could think about picking up marbles. You could literally put a towel under your foot and roll up the towel under your foot as you do it. Whatever helps cue you to get that sensation of pulling and shortening at the midfoot and arch there, that's what we want. And you can see my arch actively working very hard to pull back and really shorten in this shape here. Now that one is going to be big. All of these will help strengthen and should even provide some pretty quick relief to the pain you're feeling with that plantar fasciitis, really. Next, we're going to start addressing the joints above. So here we're going to look at the ankle and the system of the leg as a whole. So first of all, I want to make sure I have good ankle dorsiflexion. This is going to test your Achilles tightness, your calf tightness. So we want a band anchored down low. We're going to put it at the front of the ankle, and then we're going to step up on a bench or chair or whatever and drive that knee over the toes. Now, what's key here is, to start off, I want 3 points of contact from the foot. The first metatarsal behind the big toe, the fifth metatarsal behind the smallest toe, and the heel. Now I'm starting to raise up through the ball of the foot, actually flexing the back of my leg to raise up against the resistance of the band. And when I release that flex, I'm actually letting my body sink deeper into that stretch. So we're using a little contract relax method here to get range of motion at the ankle dorsiflexion. Next, I'm gonna place my hand over my foot to help anchor it down, and then I wanna push on the knee to open my hip into external rotation. It's very important that my foot can spiral in the opposite direction of my hip external rotation. So that would be pronation of the foot there, connecting my first metatarsal to the floor there. Now this might look pretty extreme of an angle compared to what you're able to do, and at first your foot's probably going to want to roll to the outside of the foot. That's okay, it takes time, it takes repetition to build up to where you have this separation of external rotation at the hip and a good plant from the foot. Next, we're moving up to the hip here. So we're going to place the band up at the hip crease and lay back, pushing off a post, whatever you're anchored to there. First of all, hugging the knee so that the hip is in deep flexion. And I'm just going to move it in the upper range of that socket. Might be a little crunchy, might be a little bit odd at first. If there's any points that are a little bit tender, just kind of slowly work your way through those while the band is pulling at the hip joint. This will help centrate the hip and allow us to open up range of motion that we might not have been able to access before by taking pressure off. So test that range of motion, be patient, and slowly work through just breathing as we go. You might need to adjust the band, it's okay, it's an awkward place, just make it as comfortable as possible for yourself as you're working. Next, we're going to actually take that leg and work internal and external rotation here. So we want to open up the foot, think of the small toes pulling toward the outside as if they were trying to touch the outside of their shin here. It's going to feel like a weird rotation at first, but we want to make sure that we have that internal rotation and we're still holding that band so our hip is at about 90 degrees as we're doing this rotation. In order to get external rotation, we're going to turn over and place the outside of the leg down to the floor. I'm going to hold my foot in place. I can even interlace my fingers with my toes here if I want to, and place the other hand on my knee. Now if you're too tight in this external rotation, what you can do is actually do this elevated on a bench as well. So you would place that front leg up on a bench and the back leg would still be extended like this, which would take some pressure off. Now, if you still have trouble from that, you can even put the bench at a slight incline to help ease the angle that the external rotation is required. But just know this, if you are missing that external rotation, that is a big piece of the puzzle as to why you're lacking stability in your hip and foot, which is causing your plantar fasciitis and making those calves chronically tight, overall driving it. Last one with the band, we're going to restore our hip extension. So what I want to do is place the band up at the back of the glute on one leg. I'm going to step back with that leg and you'll see me actively flexing my glutes and relaxing. So contract, relax, 5 seconds on and then release. Now what I'm doing there is opening up hip extension. If I don't have full extension, I don't have full access to my glutes. Okay, so just like if I don't have external rotation, I don't have full access to my glutes. So we want to make sure we restore both of those so that we have full access to all the glutes. All right, next we're going to do some self-myofascial release. Now it does have its place. It's not the full fix, but it does have its place. So we want to make sure those tissues are gliding well, that we also have space at the knee joint that we should, so that everything is functioning as it should around the knee and down below from there. Again, we always want to look above and below the site of the pain to help resolve the problem. So here I've got the ball wedged in at the back of my calf and hamstrings here. And we're going to be releasing the calf and hamstring by driving up through the big toes, which is going to feel quite uncomfortable at first if you are tight here. but it should resolve the discomfort as you're doing it. So breathe, do the best you can, rolling up, pushing through the big toe and second toe as you drive up, not rolling out to the outside of the foot, a nice straight line, and then relaxing back down. I'm going to spend about 2 minutes per side on this one to open up the tissues and restore the sliding surfaces at the back of the calf here. And one more for the hip. We're gonna roll right around the hip joint itself up in those glutes. And this one's pretty cool. So you can test the function change in this doing one side at a time. So as I roll this right side out, what I would do is actually, before rolling it, start by flexing my butt as tight as I could, just to test, standing there flexing as tight as I could. After rolling, I wanna test again before doing the other side and see which side contracts harder. I'm willing to bet it's the one that rolled. So this actually will help improve glute function as you're doing it. And what we're gonna do is seek out tender points to those tissues, rolling around the back of the hip joint, almost in a C shape, I like to think of. And in those tender points, we're gonna flex and release on those tender points until we start to notice that we can go deeper into those tissues with less discomfort. About 2 minutes again on total time to work in it. All right, and lastly, we want to work our third pillar of our mobility system here, and that is creating stability through strength or stability training. So here we're using an R&T method. The band is pulling me into the common problem that most people run into, and that is a collapsing knee because of a weak hip. So I want to let my knee cave in as much as I can, keeping my 3 points of contact from my foot. First metatarsal, fifth metatarsal, heel, and then externally rotate once again, keeping the 3 contact points of my foot without letting it peel off the floor. So my goal is to see how much range of motion I can actually use there without my foot losing contact in both directions. And I'm gonna do about 15 reps here, really focusing on feeling the glutes working to pull that band open each time into external rotation. My pelvis should be slightly tucked in posterior tilt, so I feel my glutes even on the back leg that is down, not with the band. And lastly, I always like to test glute bridges as well. And here we're looking at if the glutes are actually contracting the way that they should. So when you elevate into a bridge and hold it, you should not feel your hamstrings, you should not feel your quads, you should not feel your calves, you should feel your glutes. It is a glute bridge. So if you do not feel your glutes in a glute bridge, we need to get to the point where you feel your glutes in the glute bridge working, and that is ultimately our goal. All right, and there you have it, a mobility-based approach to help you fully resolve your plantar fasciitis that you've been struggling with. Again, you have to attack the root of the problem, which is not just the foot itself, but also the hip in combination with the foot. So when you address both of those things and really restore your mobility in both areas, this is where you'll see the true solution to your plantar fasciitis pain. If you like this video, make sure you let me know by clicking that big thumbs up down below, and take a moment to share this one with a friend that you know struggles with plantar fasciitis as well. You know that they would thank you for it in the long run. If you're somebody who struggles with reoccurring training aches or injuries, if you're a runner, if you're lifting weights, or if plantar fasciitis has just been nagging you for so long and you want more direct guidance in resolving that, what I want you to do right now is drop down below in the description here and fill out the coaching application to get your mobility blueprint call scheduled. What we'll do is take a moment to assess your current movement. We'll develop your mobility blueprint for a 12-week program, and then from there, we'll explain clearly how online coaching works and how we'll help you actually resolve your pain that you're dealing with, your injury that you're dealing with, or simply just help you improve your mobility overall in that 12-week period. If that sounds good to you, drop down in the description right now, go ahead and schedule your blueprint call, and we'll get you moving in the right direction. Last but not least, if you have not already, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine, and it doesn't get better than that. Welcome to the Stronghold Army. We'll see you next week.